All right, everyone, now we have to talk about Washington's open 3 district and the House race there. Actually, someone who had been written off the other day is surging in later ballot counts. And I think over the weekend, of course it's Saturday, I don't think there are any more counts, but next week you should end up with a victor. This is an open primary position. And so the top 2 candidates, regardless of who they are, they end up going on to the general election. Now, Joe Kent is the MAGA candidate. He was endorsed by Trump. He has some issues with him, perhaps, but overall, well, he did get the endorsement. He's not an impeacher, at least. And Jaime Herrera Beutler was in a fairly comfortable second-place finish. She, of course, is the impeacher in the race. She voted to impeach Trump over the insurrection hoax and other things. There were 11 Republicans who did. Now, of those Republicans, 4 are not seeking any re-election. So that's almost half of them. Liz Cheney will be knocked out in less than 2 weeks. That's a foregone conclusion. That makes 5. Of course, you had several of them knocked off in the primaries, and I think one before that. If Beutler does not hold on to that spot, I think that makes 9 that have been knocked off out of the 11. It appears that Newhouse will go on to the general election. He was an impeacher. He had fairly high support, and so 1 is safe. I don't know. I can't remember if the 11th is up for a primary in the next months. I'm actually not sure about that. I should probably look it up. But Beutler is now leading her Joe Kent, third-place rival, by less than 300 votes. It was a lead of about 2,000, then new ballots came in, and it looks like on same-day balloting, he's kicking ass. This was sort of what happened with Kari Lake. Robson led heavily in mail-in and early voting, had a lead that some people said was insurmountable. It was very, very funny because all of the liberals were crowing about that. That was the big one was the Arizona gubernatorial GOP primary. They're like, well, Kari Lake is down by like 8 points. Ha ha ha. The polls were wrong by an insurmountable total that can't statistically be actually evinced. You'll notice that. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, honk, honk. It was totally, totally organic. Nothing strange happening there. Haha, the Pence-backed Robinson is going to win. Trump, MAGA has failed. Trump is pooping his pants. And, you know, the normal thing about him being a big orange baby, rolling around incoherently, bellowing on the floor, vomiting and gasping for air and calling for another Coca-Cola, and all that stupid shit. They have a very infantile grasp of reality that's not really real at all. They're still thinking that he's going to get slamma-jammed because of the J6 committee levying charges against him that it has so far failed to prove. This showing the Trump derangement syndrome side of things. They're fucking terrified of the dude and will remain so. He's still waiting in the wings to announce whether he's running again. They're batshit terrified over that too. I think that the liberal media is more worried that he'll wait until after midterms, actually, since they've set the stage to explain a pre-midterm run as a way to avoid justice for his role in the insurrection. What better way to stick it to them, by the way, Donald? Here's a hint here, by waiting until after the midterms because clearly you did nothing wrong. And that is the truth. They're talking to Trump's lawyers. It doesn't mean anything, just to be clear. Beutler is another impeacher. And in every count, in every new ballot drop that you had the other day, Kent pulled ahead. In fact, it is now projected that he will probably prevail. It won't be by a huge amount, a few thousand votes maybe. It could be in the hundreds. It might even trigger some sort of recount, to tell the truth. It'd be very, very interesting if the non-MAGA people were the ones requesting it and saying that there were shenanigans. It's always a possibility, too. With this, MAGA has had a near clean sweep as of the primaries a couple of days ago. They've swept it up 3 to 1 or 4 to 1 in most of the primaries prior. The idea that populism or making America great again, as that, trademarked slogan, has died within the Republican Party and Trump is on the ropes and all of these other things do not comport with political reality. The big one will be Liz Cheney. I expect that she'll lose by 20 points or more against Hageman. Again, Hageman not a perfect individual, but not an impeacher. Liz Cheney has become, because of her own forcefulness, the face of the J6 committee. This is why she's constantly rambling about this. She's effectively campaigning, although not in her home state at this time. She's effectively soliciting money from Democrats right now and trotting out fucking Dick Cheney of all people to to cut a 1-minute video about Trump being a threat to democracy. These people are not acting out of a position of strength. The legacy media can cast it off that way, but the reality, the actual actions that you see, tell a totally different story from their words. When this happens within politics, like with the globalists saying that you need to eat the bugs and live in the pod to save the climate, but they just bought another mansion and another fleet of limos, when that disconnect appears between action and word within politics, or within activism for that matter, you can be sure that there's some monkey shines going on. The fact is that the legacy media is gunning after MAGA from an entirely different perspective than a real one. They're trying to demoralize people by claiming that populism's dead. Trump has fallen out of favor. I guess we're pounding pavement with DeSantis now, or something like that. We're going to get MAGA light because MAGA is dead. The American people have rejected it. If the American people have rejected MAGA, why are you getting so many? Why are all the impeachers gone, other than one or maybe two? Why are MAGA candidates sweeping up precincts? Why are they running all the voting machines in every red state right now and half the swing states? Why has defortification occurred? Why do they keep up racking victories in the courts? Again, on the ground, the actual actions, totally different story from what's being portrayed by the legacy media to Soccer Mom America. I think that the other part is this, and this goes beyond Beutler potentially losing. And in fact, I would say there's a better than 50-50 chance Joe Kent actually pulls it off. After having been written off in the initial results, oh, he's too far behind, he can't make it. It's Kerry Lake 2.0 in terms of same-day turn-up, because Trump has told people to turn up in person to return their ballots. You might see an inversion of the Bloomberg ethos from 2020. You remember when he said, well, it's going to seem like a clean sweep for Trump on election night, but then the mail-in ballots will show up and tell a different story. I think you might see an inversion of this. That would be very funny for 24 and very well deserved. The other part that explains, in my opinion, the disconnect between the legacy media claiming MAGA is completely dead and crippled and nobody loves it anymore, and the reality, which is that even Beutler may lose here, and again, that's a near clean sweep for MAGA in a single primary night, is to calm down and try to not demoralize liberal voters. Because if they get the sense that MAGA has become the standard of the Republican Party, has not successfully been stopped despite years of propaganda, some of these people will be demoralized because they're looking at their own party and seeing Bidenomics, which doesn't work. They're seeing neoliberals stifle the far left, which is technically reformist, although in an insane manner. Being ignored, being shoved aside, Nancy Pelosi telling AOC at one point last year to sit down and shut up, basically. That would be demoralizing for a significant chunk of the party, wouldn't it? Oh, these Republicans, the MAGA types are having their cake, eating it too, and then shoving it in the face of the neocons. We're not able to make any headway within our own party. What gives? It would make, I think, left-wing Democrats, the younger ones that knock on doors, the ones that do the canvassing for the old fogies that actually are up for re-election, it would make them very sad. I think that the legacy media is more worried about that than anything else, because if you don't have that youth turnout, there's no way that there can be any honkening in the future regardless of fortification, because it wouldn't be accepted. And just to be clear, the leftoids would begin to scratch their heads in confusion and say, hey, maybe this is a little bit like when Bernie Sanders got shafted several times by the DNC with their debate schedule and all of their other various rules and their move away from the caucus system. That's about all. Peace out.